a great text typeface which also includes math support. So this is now on the left is the STIX, which is the a sort of a conversion or a variant of the first STIX fonts, and then the STIX 2 on the right with lots of problems. I think corrected, like a newly drawn Greek as well, and this is I sort of highly recommend trying out STIX 2 for both like mathematical typesetting but also general typesetting, because this is just a it's a portion of the journal that I kind of reset in STIX rather than Charter. This is a new project, STIX 2. It's been published in December, and I hope that the work will continue because I know that Ross has more weights and more characters in preparation, and I would love to see some financing done for the project, because it's just superbly good. It's just but it's not it's not like in your face. It's very calm. It's very sort of neutral. So it's a if you use this instead of Times, nobody will consciously notice, but the reading experience will be sort of more pleasant.
Can you go back? Why is the last line of the first paragraph so very dense?
Oh, because I did a bad job I kind of took a PDF, converted it to InDesign, and so it's just my...
Did you use the wrong language? Isn't it novel?
Yeah, possibly. It's just this was like a this isn't really. I did this as a kind of quick demo to see how it works in real text. So so it's very likely my my mistake. So yeah, so this is the STIX 2, just regular italic and a bold. You shouldn't need more for text, long productions, and the math forms, which I mentioned there. Well, then there's Lato, which is by Łukasz Dziedzic with the participation of a few more people, including myself. It's super popular. Has a large character set, also has IPA and, well, Cyrillic Greek, lots of, basically about 3,000 glyphs per weight, comes in 9 weights, plus italics, and as it so happens, sort of, it looks like it's a good match, for instance, for STIX 2, because it uses a similar rhythm. The line spacing is different because the line space, this is default line spacing in the fonts, you would have to sort of set to your own parameters, and maybe you might need to sometimes change the point size slightly between, if you're using fonts that have a similar skeleton, similar structure, but one is drawn slightly larger and the other is drawn slightly smaller. If you want to equalize it on the X height, you might want to say, this one, use the sans at, I don't know, 10.24 points and the other at 10.01 or something. But it generally works really well. Then the source Serif Pro, source Sans Pro, that's the source Serif Pro is basically the font that Hans was using a variant thereof. The serif is pretty good, although it doesn't have italics, which is possibly there in the works. The sans is a bit technical. I'm not really a big fan of the source sans. There is also a source code, which is a monospaced. Playfair Display and Libre Baskerville, again, sort of two more historical typefaces, useful for kind of classical typesetting, where Playfair Display should be used in large sizes. It's based on a Baskerville model, it's inspired by the Baskerville model, and Libre Baskerville is just more straightforward digitization of the John Baskerville's typefaces, so they work well together because they were inspired in the same historical context, even though different designers did them. And of course, you know, this one as a display typeface has a higher contrast, slightly different proportions, but they sort of come from the same, you know, family, origin-wise. Then there's Libre Caslon. Caslon is just a very kind of decent, readable text typeface. Just has a regular and an italic, not a huge character set. Oh, and there is also a display version. So, then a very interesting project that is still in development called Koala Canth, which is inspired by one of Bruce Rogers' typefaces, sort of early 20th century. Also, it has its problems, so it's not. This one is sort of promising. I wouldn't necessarily recommend using it quite yet, but I know that the designer is working on it. Then there are the Alexei Krukov's typefaces, three kind of Dido-based designs, which have don't have italics, but have very good Cyrillics and also very good Greeks, which are sort of very historically accurate. Three different models. It's well documented. I recommend it as well for if you're doing some classical text typesetting.
Could you please repeat the name of that font?
Theano. 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 This is a series of designs made by Huerta Typographica, the same guys who did the Alegria, sort of optimized for more or less like a newspaper context. So Manuale, and then there's Faustina, they're both serifs. Then there's Bitter, which is a slab. And then as a good match to it as a sans serif, I would say Fira Sans. Fira Sans is a design by friends of mine, Ralph de Carois and his team, derived from Eric Spiekermann's Meta. And Faustina and Manuale just have I think the regular and italic and possibly bold. Bitter has a few weights, I think, and Fira has a huge number of weights from very, very thin to very black, plus also condensed variants. And then there's, one of my favorite sans serifs, which is Work Sans, is on the left, and on the right, it's sort of a matching project as a slab serif, Libre Clarendon. Work Sans is just, Clarendon, you know, a very kind of workhorse typeface, with a bit of a mechanical feel, and Work Sans just a great sans serif in the spirit of early 20th century grotesques. Works very well on screens and in small sizes because it has quite generous spacing and a large X height, and has really nice weight variation. Just one width, but very nice weight variation. Then there's Aileron, which is sort of like a realist sans serif, kind of in the spirit of Adrian Frudiger's universe, very clean and neutral, by Sora Sagano. Then there is Chivo and Archivo, very, very nice, sort of grotesque typefaces, with a bit of flavor. Basically has this sort of 1970s feel to it. Oswald, very popular headline, condensed headline font, which has been recently extended with added Cyrillic and additional weights. And then a couple of more decorative, or in a sense, so Marcellus is a design that is by Brian J. Bronislawski, who calls himself Astigmatic One-Eye Type Foundry, which works very well in all caps typesetting. It's sort of like a bit of a Optima kind of flair, very nice, would work very well in this sort of Roman inscriptional context as well. And there's Cinzo, which is kind of in a similar spirit by Nathaniel Gama, and kind of like a, your open source replacement for Trajan, or, derived from the Roman Capitalis, also has a decorative and also a black variant, which sort of has a bit more punch. Then, this is more like fun and kind of, so Sansita is, like a fluid, funny font. Modak is a great design by, which is actually a full Devanagari, Indic typeface with the Latin portion done in the same style. And actually the Latin portion is, already quite good. It's kind of like this Kupa black. It's more for fun. And then Wiktoria Grabowska, Polish-Ukrainian designer, created a couple of fonts, Kavun and Struktur. And then there's a couple of, open source Fraktur or black letter types. Pirata 1 is a nice one, and Unifraktura. O, co zero? Ah, dziękuję. Monsieur Ladulez, if you need a traditional kind of copperplate type of script by Alejandro Paul, a great designer. Alurad, all these fonts were, paid by Google Fonts. And so, type designers who design commercial typefaces have open sourced these, basically being paid by Google to open source these designs. So yeah, Rob Luschke, another great calligrapher. Jim Nightshade is again, Brian J. Bronislawski. That also Dynalite, Yesteryear. Vampiro is by Riccardo De Franceschi. Kalam is also a Devanagari font. And then I think my favorite one, Pesita, this one is crazy. It has like support for like a huge number of scripts. I think it has Arabic and Hebrew and Cyrillic and Greek, all done in this very handwritten, and it has great signatures and sort of is a beautiful, just one way, but very, very extensive. I think it has like 5,000 glyphs or something. Very cool project, and I think that's sort of, I have more, but I'll stop here. So effectively, if you go to the web address, maybe I'll just show. You can download the archive and check the fonts themselves. There are pointers to the actual sources or the best sources for these fonts, the original sources. So usually it's GitHub repositories. Sometimes it's some other locations, and I'll try to keep it up, to sort of update this thing from time to time. But yeah, so there are lots of fonts out there now, which are high quality and open source, and it's time to use them. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe some short questions.
The presentation
Can you say again?
Could you put the presentation also online?
Yes, I definitely, yes. I definitely.
We'll do all presentations, we'll put them online.
And I'll probably also put this one into the GitHub repository. It's sort of, so yeah. So it's gonna be there definitely.
Jeszcze Marcin tam się zgłaszał. Marcin, chciałeś?
I'm not sure whether I heard the question, but I think I have the same question. But the point is, you told us that there is like 1,000 fonts in that repository, but you showed us today, I guess, maybe 40 or 60 of them.
These are families. Of course, some of them have lots of styles. I've sort of shown about the half, because some like Fira has like a huge number of styles, and I only showed 3 or 4.
But you had also some suggestions about which fonts can go with which fonts.
Yes.
Are these suggestions also somewhere in that? Under
They're not there yet, but I hope they will be. So I'm going to put this presentation there into the repo
Subjects for next year.
and probably
Because that
write something. Yes, absolutely. So this is basically like a start. You know, I finally found time to look at them and sort of try to come up with, well, the best ones. So yeah, so I hope this collection will kind of get more content. Not necessarily more fonts, but more content as along the lines you asked.
Okay, the last two questions, you enhance them.
Does it make sense for anyone to tackle math fonts to be added to Noto, or would Google do that by themselves? Or?
Could we get funding for that?
Could we get funding? Yeah.
From Google.
Yes.
Possibly. I don't know what their plans are for like a Noto serif math, which effectively would be the sensible choice. I can't tell. I mean, they have lots of work already. So maybe if somebody said, okay, so you commission us and we sort of do it for you, so it's like you don't have to deal with it at all. Maybe they would agree. It's hard to tell. I know that they're very busy and already have this ambitious pipeline planned for completing their kind of core goal, which is to actually complete support of Unicode, and that's sort of their primary goal. I think the secondary goal is also to have these fonts variable as much as possible, because the variable fonts allow them to, they're very well compressible. Basically a variable font replaces a large number of static fonts, but it is about 1/3, 1/4 maybe of the size. So for bundling with something like Android phones, they want to use the variable fonts because they're just smaller than including individual fonts, and you can have more weights. So this is the primary goal, is sort of from this internationalization perspective. I know that, well, they may not necessarily have plans for sort of specialized typesetting scenarios, even math, but maybe they do. I can't tell.
maybe
Okay.
they don't have the funds.
Okay. Don't go too deeply into the discussion because we don't have so much time. Maybe Hans, last questions from
Okay.
Hans.
Honestly, I think I'm next. I'm happy to give up a few minutes of my time.
We already have a few minutes. Hans.
If you combine all these scripts in one font, is this something that is, from the design point of view, possible? In the sense of like, aren't they sometimes so extreme in the demands that you cannot create a consistent one font?
Yes, this is why it actually isn't. The Noto isn't one font. It's basically this collection of smaller fonts, because very often well, first of all, technically at some point it breaks the G-subs, G-posts, the open type layout tables become too complicated. And also, presets, like if you ship one font, then basically for the default line spacing, you have to choose the highest one. So then the Latin is tiny and the default line spacing is huge. It's all, so they're making these split fonts. I think they will make kind of like a fallback combined fonts, but without the layout features, just to be able to quickly get the glyphs. But
I also mean style-wise. Is it possible,
Yeah.
let's say, is there always a possibility to make a Cyrillic that matches Latin? Or
oh yeah, that's yes, because they're kind of European scripts. But yes, if you're thinking about, let's say Tamil or Mongolian or Lao or Arabic and then Latin, that is more like, okay, the decisions are much simpler. It's like, okay, do we have contrast in both? Yes or no? Is it, if it's linear, or is it kind of like a sans, which actually is not sans serif, in a sense that lots of these scripts don't have the concept of a serif. It's actually more like modulated stroke or unmodulated linear stroke, and that's the basic difference between the Noto sans and Noto serif. So lots of these designs, they have either a calligraphic modulated stroke or an unmodulated stroke, but they don't differ on serifs. They're still called sans and serif because it's like a more or less intuitive to normal users. But yeah, sometimes they're not superb matches. They are done by the individual designers. Some of them are kind of rehashes of Monotype's older designs that now Google paid them to open source effectively, but they weren't all designed from scratch to be a harmonious thing. That project would take, 30 years or something. So, and there aren't enough type designers in the world who, even if employed all together, but if you employ all the type designers together, then how do you get a harmonious design? A harmonious design, of course, ideally should be from one designer, but this is not possible for one designer to create all these glyphs. So yeah, so there are compromises. They're matches, they're decent matches, but they're not perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.